It's October. That means Inktober, but I can't draw. The problem with Inktober is every year I've been trying to do an Inktober challenge. I make it through 5 prompts and then I give up because I don't really like what I'm producing and I feel intimidated also to post it online. But what if I combine my Inktober challenge with what I'm good at, which is coloring? Introducing Ashley Monet's new coloring book, Black It Out. I love Ashley Monet. I think I've followed every single one of her YouTube videos since day one. Avid fan, always watch them the second she releases a new episode. And so when she decided to create a coloring book where she took her favorite designs and turned it into a coloring book for us, 31 to be exact, in honor of October, I figured perfect. 31 prompts in this book. 31 prompts for Inktober, therefore it's a match made in heaven. Here are my rules. Rule number 1, I have to learn to draw sometime, so I need to add in a background. She has blacked out the backgrounds, and so I just need to use some acrylic paint pens and draw something in. Rule number 2, it still is Inktober, so all the prompts have to line up to Inktober, so I need to modify her original images to fit that prompt. Rule number 3, put a sticker on it. Well, enough of me talking. Let's see what we can create. And the first prompt coming up is Mustache. So I chose this alien chick here with the cat on her shoulders, and I'm deciding to start by coloring her with very alien-y colors. I want it to be green, but rather than the grass green that you often get with aliens, this time I want it to be a bit more of like a minty green. And so I'm still not very good with using alcohol markers. I don't really 100% know what I'm doing, but I'm starting with the base layer of a light color and then coming in afterwards with some shadows after it's dried a bit. Hopefully the colors blend out naturally on their own. I think that's one thing about alcohol markers that I don't really like, is that you can't really tell when you should stop blending. I guess if you use them more, you get used to it, but sometimes they blend on their own as they dry, sometimes they don't. No idea. But I'm doing the same thing here with the hair, but I'm putting all my shadows on the under edges. But I want the hair to kind of look more like tentacles because, you know, she is an alien. And so I'm putting some little stripes on it using my darker marker. And that striping is really helping, I think, with the overall alien effect here. I'm also never sure about where to put shading on the face, so I just kind of outlined the nose and the cheek, but it's fine. And even here with the cat, I want this cat to be a white cat, so I'm putting in just like a hint of pink, and I want the eyes to not really have any pupils, so just a hint of that same pink just on the edges. And why not use the same pink for the lips? I figured that the fewer colors I use and the more I reuse the same marker, the more cohesive the whole piece will look. And so here we go, same pink this time for the shirt as well. And this is where I realized that the plastic sheet I have to protect my pages was actually harming my pages because it has marker on it. Look at that blue staining. That is from the plastic protector. How ironic. I guess she's just a bit grungy and has a bit of a stained shirt because I don't really feel like covering this over with blue, which is what I would have done otherwise to kind of get rid of that blue. I just, you know, I'm gonna accept it. I'm gonna move on. It's fine. It's annoying, but it's fine. But at this stage, you might be wondering, isn't this prompt supposed to be mustache? That's right, I'm adding in a mustache to my alien lady. I kind of want this to be like a big sweeping stash, the kind of stashes that you have on stash competitions in South Asia. And I'm coming in with my gold gel pen for this because I do have some gold detailing with some jewelry, like her thumb rings and the little rings in her hair. But I don't really know how to do perspective, so I was trying to make this stash that goes across the left side of her face curve slightly as though her face is curved, but it just kind of looks as though she has a stash that's not the same shape left to right, so it's not really a I don't know, it's not really a parallel stash or an even stash. Yeah, see, I can't draw, but that's why I'm doing this challenge. I'm trying to teach myself how to draw. I'm giving her a little chin thingy as well, like not quite a beard, but a chin thingy. And I've tried to draw a stash on the alien happy face on her shirt, but again I messed it up, and again for some reason I can't seem to make things even left to right, and I maybe should have looked up a reference photo because now it just looks like there's a weird second smile on top of the smiley face. So I ended up whiting it out and getting rid of it. And so here I decided to put in a little sticker. I went through my sticker stashes and I figured, do I look like I care? It seems to have a nice sassiness to it. But because I want to challenge myself also to draw backgrounds, I decided to make this look a bit pop arty because I wasn't really sure what to do otherwise. And pop art often uses things like these lines that kind of explode from the center, so it sort of looks as though there's like an explosion behind her. And to finish off the effects, I'm adding a bunch of dots, making them a bit more concentrated towards the center, and then less concentrated towards the edges, as though the dots themselves are also dispersing through space. And I think the dots give it a bit of a spacey vibe as well. I wasn't really happy with the mustache that I had, so I whited it out, and then I decided to use my paint pens to kind of add in the purple instead. This is the same purple as the hair, because I also figured that, you know, it is hair, and hair on your face should be the same color as the hair on your head, so why does she have a golden mustache but purple hair? And so I put on a light layer first, and then waited for it to dry, went over with some of the stripes to kind of recreate that. I threw in some shading here and there to make it look like a bit more natural, like shadows on the other ends, shadows more like around the lip ends, and I think it looks way better this way. Now it's time to start the second prompt. So the second prompt of Inktober is weave, and so I'm picking the Medusa page for this here. I don't like snakes. I grew up in a snake-infested area on a farm. We have had snakes in the house. We have had snakes in the swimming pool. I've nearly stepped on several venomous snakes. I am not a fan of snakes. I still have nightmares about snakes, in fact. I think I might be slightly snake phobic. So the Medusa page here, the snake's gotta go. And so I'm kind of like whiting out their primary features first to get rid of like the eyes, because if you put alcohol markers on top of it, like it'll seep through. And I decided, even like with this big open maw fangy mouth thing here, I'm gonna get rid of that too. So I'm using my black paint pen for that. And so the black paint pen is a bit of a different color than like the black background, because one is, you know, inkjet ink and the other is acrylic paint. But for now, I don't care. I'm glad to leave it like that. And so my initial idea here is to have her be a bit vampiric, because the teeth were giving me vampire vibes. So I gave her some red eyes. I'm giving her some like bright red lips. And of course she's gonna need a bright red gown to complement it, because what classy vampire lady does not match her lipstick to her fancy gothic robe? And this also kind of covers up some of the cracks that we have on her body. And so I'm just going to turn those cracks into some shading and shadows afterwards by adding in a bit of a darker red. And so this can help like emphasize some of it, and yeah, just kind of hide some of these cracks that we have at the bottom, and give her a you know, just like a hint of a cleavage. Why not? And I decided that she's gonna have blood on her fangs. Yeah, she just fed, and so the blood's kind of dripping down her cheeks and chin. You know, just not so classy when you eat, I suppose. You get filled with the gore of it all. But moving on to the skin, even though right now it looks like it has a bit of a gray parlor to it, that's because the black of the backside of the page is seeping through. But as soon as the ink dries, it's kind of cool. You can start seeing it becoming more and more of that nude flesh color than anything else. Moving into the hair, I wanted her originally to have sort of dreadlocks, and I wanted them to have like a weave of blue through them. And so I started with that blue as though they were like held together with some blue thread, and then went in with gray, and then went in with black, and finally with some highlights to make it all kind of come together. And ta-da, no more snakes for hairs. Thank goodness, get rid of those serpents. So now we can understand that the weave is not only going to be with that hairstyle, it's also going to be with spiders as they're weaving their nest. And I present to you, she is no longer a vampire, she's actually a black widow. So I'm using my stencil, and this stencil, I kind of wish it was reverse, as in, instead of having like the empty space be so big, I wish like that the threads themselves were the empty spaces, because what this means is I'm trying to kind of reverse create the spider web. But now it's time to add some stickers. So I'm starting with a few small baby spiders, one here in the web itself, and then the other I decided to put on her dress, kind of like a brooch in a sense. We just kind of have to figure out who these spiders are. Are they her minions? Are they her children? Or are they the lover slash husbands that she's eventually going to devour as well, since that's what Black Widows are really known for. Anyway, I decided to freehand and continue with this web effect throughout, and then I decided that the whole background at this stage I was going to cover with my white gel pen. In retrospect, it did look fine as it was, but I sort of felt as though the background needed something. I'm still trying to figure out how to draw. I'm still trying to figure out like how much is too much, but it still looks nice in the end. Maybe you can imagine it as kind of like a mat of cobweb that over the years has like almost felted around her and on the floor. That could be one way of interpreting what I just did with the background over here. Anyway, it's time for some final details, add some final cobwebs on her dresses, and even here coming out of her fangs. Maybe she's a bit like Spider-Man, but instead of shooting the threads from her wrists, they come out of her fangs as she eats or something like that. But she needs her own little quote bubble, and this one here, I didn't have the words that I liked, so I decided to write one myself. Come to Mama seems to be the most appropriate one for her. Anyway, my next one here is crown. So for this one, I took this Black Plague mask dude holding a cat, and I'm doing probably like my biggest modification yet. His hat is going to turn into a crown. So step one is to black it out using my black marker, and yes, it does look a bit different from the background, which means that later I'm going to have to cover the entire background with a black acrylic paint pen just so that it doesn't have this like weird shape on the background. And I'm also doing my best to draw in a tiara because she is his little princess and also needs her own little crown. I then decided to go over everything with a fine liner just to see if I can make it look like it's some original artwork, even though my lines are definitely a lot wonkier than Ashley Monet's. And I'm going to make her little inside ears pink. That's just like a really nice baby pink. Make her little toe beans pink. Make her little nose pink. Make her eyes blue. She's going to be a white cat and she's going to be a princess. So to make her look like a white cat, she needs to have gray on her. And I know that at the moment they kind of look like gray splotches because that's how I put them on, but they do fade, and then as they fade it does have a bit of a fur feel to it. And I'm just kind of now putting blue first and then layers of gray going to black for his coat, because I want him to look like he's wearing a black coat, but it can't just be like a solid black coat, neither can it like blend into the background. So having some blue and some gray and some white highlights I think helps with some of that there. And now for the face, so again, just kind of layering it first with that blue and then putting in more and more layers of black. It did end up being a bit more dark than I wanted it to be and a bit more solid, but I'm going to fix it with this eye here. So I need some eye shinies. I don't want him to really look like gruesome and horrifying. Maybe because it's too solid of a black, I can use my acrylic paint pen and just add him some shadow lines. And now eyelashes, because eyelashes really innocent things out. So he's gonna have some real nice thick eyelashes. He's even gonna have some under eyelashes. And he is very much a lover of a cat now, and so fits the whole overall vibe. And now finally, using some stencils again, this time heart-shaped stencils, and I'm using my little Jelly Roll pink pen from the Moonlight series to add in my little hearts. Yes, I could try to freehand hearts, but as you can probably tell from the stage of the video, I can't draw things parallel to each other. My hearts are so wonky, and so stencils come here to save my life. Alright, yes, I'm doing a really random white splotch here, and I'll explain what this is in a moment. It is picking up the black paint pen from underneath really annoyingly, but I'm still adding to it, going over it with multiple Poscas, waiting for it to dry, going over it again, and now you can see it's a bit of a banner, and you can make a banner shape by having this weird like M-shaped thingy slightly below. And then it looks like a banner. And our word here is princess, and that's because she's his little princess. Yeah, I messed it up. It's dirty. I got the sticker dirty. It's fine. But there's nothing that a white paint pen can't fix. So moving on to prompt number 4, this one is Murky. Having a toad witch over her bubbling cauldron definitely gives me Murky vibes, and so I'm just going to make her very toady at the start. So a lot of these earth desaturated greens, a lot of dots and warts, and I'm also adding in some slightly brighter greens for the cauldron, just so that like there's a bit of a difference between the green of the bubbly broth and the green of our toad witch here, and even threw in some browns to make it gross. For her eyes, I'm going to make her have kind of like maroon eyes, and so I'm just going to go darker on the outside, lighter towards the inside, and there's nothing that an eye shiny can't fix. And more jelly roll highlights with our juicy highlights, as Ashley Monet likes to say. And for the hats, I'm doing it with just undertones of purple. And so this is just I guess like a trick I've been doing is if you do undertones of blue or purple, and then move into the grays and then the blacks, you can make them look black, but with a bit more dimension than if it was just pure gray. So she has like a slightly purpley hat, I guess, like a dark blacky purple hat. And of course, some juicy highlights. The jelly roll has been so good on this Amazon printed paper, by the way. I guess it's because I don't really have the resist that you get by using color pencils. But normally I only ever use acrylic paint pens because jelly rolls always clog up. But yeah, with cheap paper and with alcohol markers, jelly rolls are your friends. So some paint pens are very helpful for the backgrounds, and I decided to just add in a tufts of grass here and there. And so I'm going from different layers, from darker to lighter, trying to make them look a bit more clumpy in one area and then less clumpy in the other area and not have it be too even, because there's something about the grass being a bit uneven, which looks really good. And then I'm adding a bit of like bubbles for the background, and I really wish I stopped here because this looks perfect so far. Like, this is such a nice image. But the prompt did say murky, and so I decided to try to use some paint pen and smush it with a finger and make a blob. Terrible idea, even though it did end up sort of blobbing. And yeah, so I'm just trying to make it look like it's a misty background. And I initially wanted it to only be misty at the edges and then just have this mist come out of the cauldron. The cauldron mist I think was perfect. Like, if I just did the cauldron mist and not the background mist, this would have been great. Or even if I left it here, that's still looking fine. But me being me, I decided to continue because I thought that it didn't look nice. And yeah, so you then have like messy accidental splotches like I had over there. Anyway, so I just brought it down, making it look very murky everywhere, trying to throw in like some yellows and some blues and some purples to kind of have the background have a bit more intrigue and interest. Yeah, it's a bit of a murky page, I suppose. Fits the prompt, although it did, I think, detract from it. But, you know, lessons learned. Next time I do these, I'll try to stop earlier. And so for our little quote bubble for our little toad witch here, I think she needs to reflect how I feel about the background. Yuck. Very murky background, very murky space, a bit of a gross and murky day. And here's the final prompt of the episode, and it is this fairy over here with the monarch butterfly wings, and the prompt is deer. So I'm starting with a brownie pink here for the lips, and then best decision ever, I put a tiny bit on her cheeks and then immediately went with the darker brown skin tone that I was going to use and went around it. And because that center cheek hadn't yet dried, it blended beautifully, giving her a nice soft blush. So highly recommend that if you are trying to use alcohol markers. Work quickly, and then if they blend together, you can have like a really pretty zone there. And I've definitely seen Ashley Monet do this, where one side of the face gets put into complete shadow. And so I tried that here, and I think it worked out fairly well. So yeah, slowly learning how to shadows and use alcohol markers in this process. Everything's a work in progress always, but I'm really happy so far with how this is turning out. And for the wings, I just decided to make a gradient going from yellow to orange to red. And I'm trying to alternate where on like one of the little sections it goes up and down, and then the bottom goes down and up. And so that way, like, you're not really having it being back to back. And that adds like a bit of dynamism to the little sections of the wings. And then of course, you're gonna have to end with some juicy highlights, because small white dots create so much incredible magic to anything. It just adds a bit of a glittery effect, I guess. But this page is not a fairy page, it's a deer page, and so I'm gonna give her some deer antlers. Yep, she is quite a little chimera here, fairy slash deer. And so to begin, I'm just layering down white first as a base layer, and I think that's gonna help with the brown on top. As it dries, I'm adding in some dots in the background, doing a gradient from red to yellow, and I'm just making it really simple, trying not to overdo it this time, and I'm really glad it did that because it definitely works out to create some of the magic. And then finally, it's just a matter of layering a bunch of browns and blacks and cream colors here for the deer antlers. I'm trying to make it so that it's lighter towards the top and darker towards the bottom, because that helps create a bit of a gradient effect, which makes the antlers look a bit more antlery. And now for her little voiceover quote bubble, she gets the word wild. Initially, this was supposed to be wild thing, as in it's about her being a wild thing, but I kind of accidentally like smushed the second half of the quote, so she's just instead going to be a sassy fairy. It's kind of wild. But I can't end just there. I also want to have the Inktober prompts written down somewhere. And so what I'm doing is there is one actually extra piece of paper at the back of this printing because of the way it was printed. And so I'm starting with some black acrylic paint to do my own version of an Ashley Monet like black background. Not really going all the way to the edges and just having it be a bit of like a smush on the background. And yep, so this is where I'll be writing out the prompts as I complete them. So beginning, of course, with the words Inktober, trying my best to copy the font of the original one, and then recording the 5 different prompts that I had completed. And now it's time for our final flip through. We completed a sassy alien with a mustache. We completed a bloodthirsty Black Widow spider with some leaves in the background. We completed a lovable little princess kitten wearing a crown. We completed a yucky cauldron on a yucky night with Murky. And we finally completed a deer slash fairy kind of wild. Thank you everyone so much for tuning in on episode 1. Come by next week for episode 2, where I will tackle the next 5 prompts. Bye for now and happy coloring or drawing.